I think it was the next day, I was in men's group and I was telling them I had this experience because it seemed to mean something, but I had no
Right.
idea what it meant. And Jackie, our therapist leading the men's group, said, "That's the feeling of terror." And it struck me, absolutely, that's the feeling of terror. It's deep in my soul. Today I'm going to start with 3 stories from my childhood. So I was about 2 or 3 years old, and I had my own room. I slept in the yellow room. And my bed, I remember it not being right on the floor. It seems like it was on a frame. Maybe there wasn't a box spring. And the yellow room was across the hall from my parents' room. I'd go to sleep, and at some point in the night, I'd get woken up. And what was happening was a an appliance. It looked like an appliance to me, like the size of a Windows air conditioner, or even maybe the size of a television, a big television, not the flat kind, right?
Mhm.
Would and it was hover about 3, 4 feet off the ground and float into my room, and then it would start making machine gun noises, and men would be screaming in agony. So it sounded to me like the sounds of war.
So if you were on the floor with no bed frame, then it was above you. It was kind of
Yeah, it
above
was
you.
above me.
Uh-huh.
Today I might call it an apparition.
Mhm.
And I'd be really scared,
Mhm.
a little panicked. It was kind of blocking the doorway, so I had to wait to make a move till it either went out of the room or it moved to the side. And then when there was a opportunity, I would bolt from my parents' room and climb it into their waterbed. And sometimes I would stay in there. It felt safer, but the the air conditioner would float into that room too with my parents there and do the same thing. And somehow I sensed they couldn't tell, they couldn't see it, but it was there for me. And they didn't like me in their bed, of course, eh, which is normal. And well, how normal is it? I don't know. But they wanted some sleep and maybe some distance. So they would tell me to go back into my room. So sometimes I couldn't because the apparition was there making machine gun noises and men screaming. So I have to wait till it left, and then I'd go back into my room. So that's the first story.
Okay.
Kind of out there, really scary
Yeah.
and intense for me. Okay,
Totally.
so we're moving forward chronologically here. No,
We're not
no,
sure.
we're not sure actually.
Yeah.
But there was another experience about the same time where I was about 4 years old, and I realized that my finger, let's see if I can show it, my ring finger right here on the tip is misshapen. And so I think I was asking my mom about that, and she said that when I was younger, I had been playing in the toilet, and she didn't want me to do that. So she picked me up, put me outside the bathroom door, and closed the door. And I had stuck my finger into the hinge of the door, and it had gotten cut off. And she had to pick up the piece of the finger, put it in a cup of milk and ice, and run to the hospital, which was about 40 miles away, to get it sewn back on. And I don't remember that at all, what happened. I just remember asking about it. And the only story I have is what my mom has told me. And then the third story happened when I was 7, 8, or 9. I don't remember if it was before I got baptized. In the LDS faith, we get baptized at 8 typically. But there was a lot of talk about being righteous. After you first get baptized, you're clean of your sins. And I was worried about that. There's also lots of talk about Joseph Smith and angels appearing and people hearing voices. That's kind of spirituality. So at this point, I was sleeping in the basement. It was an unfinished room. I think it might have had some paneling on the walls, but the ceiling was still unfinished. And I
Meant
had my older brother on my right, my younger brother on my left. And I'd woken up at some point in the night and I heard this voice yell at me. It said, "Nasty, nasty, nasty," really loud.
yeah.
And I was so scared. I
Y-
couldn't move my hands to even touch my brothers to check if I'm okay, if they're okay, if I'm still
mhm,
present. I just tried to move and I couldn't. And
mm,
that may have just been sleep paralysis, but it felt to me like I was petrified, scared.
yeah.
So after that experience of hearing that voice, I remember in the morning telling my mom what had happened. And she said, "Well, do you touch the tip of your penis?" Was her reaction. And I wasn't sure what she meant because there's the very tip where the hole is,
Right.
there's the tip that's like the whole
It was
head. I wasn't sure what she meant. And at this point, I think I'd already known, don't ask too many questions.
right.
So
Is it
I
only the
just,
tip I can't touch?
yeah,
Because I can work with that.
exactly, right? You are so bad. You guys can tell why I love Michelle. Okay. And so this left me with the feeling of awkwardness.
Right.
Maybe I'm a little
Confusion.
bad that I brought this on. It was my
Right.
fault. My mom kind of validated that, yeah, that was meant for me and it was a message that I'm bad. Is how I internalized it. It may
Of
not be how
course.
she meant it, of
Right.
course. And
Of course.
I have an older brother, younger brother, three younger sisters. At this point, I don't know how many kids were there. Probably there were five of us, and you know, that takes a lot of energy to raise so many kids. So anyway, it was a really strange three experiences. Definitely formidable in my life.
I remember you sharing me with those early on. Like they didn't you didn't remember them suddenly later in life. They were very concrete memories.
Yeah. Maybe I wanted to make sure you're okay being with a nasty boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
I don't know.
Right.
So these are some of the few vivid memories from my childhood. And before therapy, they were just memories. There
Yep.
was no emotion really tied to them.
So true. When you told me that, it was just a matter of fact kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I'm a grown man with almost adult children. I'm in men's group therapy. I've been in therapy with Jackie, couples therapy with Michelle. So I woke up I woke up one day, went to the bathroom just off of our bedroom and doom scrolling as you do sometimes. And I had stopped for a second and I had this feeling come up, this scary, I'm going to die. Some people might call it a panic attack. And I knew I was safe, but I had felt this emotion talking to me and I didn't know what that meant. And it lasted about 5 seconds. It was very quick and then it was over.
Mm,
And I I think it was the next day I was in men's group and I was telling them I had this experience because it seemed to mean something, but I had no
right.
idea what it meant. And Jackie, our therapist leading the men's group, said, "That's the feeling of terror." And it struck me absolutely that's the feeling of terror. It's deep in my soul. And
Yeah, when you came home and told me that story, there was like a settle. It was like that's the word. Like there was some
oh, yeah, it was
relief,
relief to have
a
a
little bit.
name. Well, I felt that I had been able to communicate to her
Right.
how I felt. And that she understood.
Right,
That was
right,
the big part, because I didn't know how to tell it to someone else. And for her to say, "Oh, that's terror.
right.
I know that feeling." That meant everything
Yes,
in that moment.
right.
So fast forward to even just last August, we're talking 2025. I go for a motorcycle ride up Butterfield Canyon. I come around a corner and there's some rocks and gravel on the road, and I'm a little too wide on the turn, and I'm in those rocks and gravel and slide out and crash. Rips up my pant leg, rips up my jacket, my gloves. My bike is okay, so I pick it up. Or I pull my leg out. My leg was like stuck under it.
Yeah.
I was able to pull it out with my hands and get it back up, and had to decide, what am I going to do now? Of course, I'm on my way up the road. Let's finish the ride. So
You did.
I rode up to the top of Butterfield Canyon, over even to the mine overlook.
Yeah.
Another
You
maybe
you did? You
three,
went
four
all the way up.
miles
Oh
off
wow.
road. I did. I went all the way up,
I didn't know.
came all the way down, got home. I went to Walmart that day with my road rash shin in my shorts and hobbled around. I think I rode my bicycle there.
Yeah, you walked
But
in to the bedroom. I happened to be in the bedroom. And you walked in and you're like, I had a hard time on my ride. And I was like, you did? And then you showed me your leg and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, you did. Yeah,
yeah, it was sad.
it was
So
rough. You're still scarred. You're still not all the way healed.
still not
And
all the way
and
healed.
it's
I
March
can
of
see it.
2026. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened Saturday. By Tuesday, I couldn't walk on it. I was on crutches getting around and had to go to the hospital finally. I don't like going to the hospital, but I finally went to the hospital, and the doctor there at the urgent care, she was so kind. And she dressed my wound, put on antibiotic ointment, wrapped it, and
Right.
really made sure I was taken care of. And it was fantastic care, and I really appreciated it. So that was Tuesday. I was working on, of course, wound recovery. It was going okay. I think I took my crutches to work. But Friday, we had therapy in the afternoon, and I just felt, again, after therapy, we had a great session. I felt really safe and taken care of. Things are going really well. We have all this therapy under our belt. Things are going good. And then that night, I had this dream where it starts off, we're in Egypt and we're making our way to Israel, and I have to go to the bathroom. I find a bathroom and I walk in, and I walk in the door. It's on the side of the street, and facing the street is a big window, but it's one of those one-way mirror type windows. So I could see from the bathroom through the urinal out to the street, and people looking in
Right.
the
And
mirror.
comfortable. Weird.
Yeah, and they couldn't see me, so I was going to the bathroom there. Then we go to our hotel in Israel at the airport, and we're laying in bed, and our oldest son is with us, and he's in the adjoining room just around like a little hall that connects us. And we're laying in bed and we're just getting ready for bed. I think we might have been enjoying some books or whatever we're doing, talking. And then something falls on my chest, and it just thuds on my chest. And I think, what is going on? And I pick it up, and it's a full on finger that's been cut off. And and I think it's my son's dismembered finger. There's a murderer in there cutting him to pieces right now. I stand up. I walk. I walk kind of slowly but resolutely to go right down the hall
Right.
to
Like slow motion almost.
feeling I'm going to get slaughtered. Michelle's going to get slaughtered. This is
Oh,
done.
scary.
And then I wake up.
Yeah. Scary. That's a scary dream. That's called a nightmare. Yeah.
Total nightmare, total terror feeling. Wake up, my heart's beating, I'm breathing fast. It was that terror feeling again. It was my body letting me know, hey, that terrorized part of you, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I need some attention.
Yeah. When you told me
I
the
still feel
dream,
unsafe.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you told me the dream and you said, yeah, this is the feeling I had back in the bathroom. And I was surprised that you were like, that you said that this was really only the second time you'd ever felt that particular feeling.
Right.
And
It was on the toilet before, and
mhm,
then this time,
in that dream.
yeah, I had no recollection of the same terror feeling from the 3 stories I started out with.
Or any other time in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Or any other time in my life.
That was interesting to me, I thought. So, yeah.
Yeah. What was happening was my body was just saying, hey, we have a feeling here and need some attention. And so I gave it a lot of thought and a lot of attention and came up with, oh, that's probably how I felt during those 3 experiences from before. And I had finally a feeling to go with those experiences that fit.
Yes.
And that was really nice.
Yeah.
So, what had happened for me was attunement wasn't available in those experiences. I didn't see anyone else in those experiences have emotions or kind of signal for me what emotion I should have. And so I didn't know what to do with these strong emotions. So I opened a door to a room in my brain, stuffed them in, and slammed the door and didn't feel those again for 40 years.
Almost two different rooms. You got the memory over here in this spot and the feelings over
Yep.
here.
Right.
Break those apart and
Reason and emotions.
whoops,
I don't have emotions.
which
Yeah.
was like a genius thing to do because
Thank you.
that feeling is there's not much more word than terrifying.
Yeah. It was overwhelming.
Like you say, you didn't have someone to process it with.
Yep.
So,
And finally, so through this being taken care of and getting attunement in therapy and at the doctor, it helped me put a feeling with the memory. I was feeling safe enough to feel the terror.
maybe you got the
Terror's,
care you needed almost,
yeah,
I wonder. Yeah.
that's right. I mentioned in the beginning, the very beginning of our first episode, I talk about how my childhood was great. And I say, it turns out fantasy is stronger than reality. And this is what we're talking about. Fantasy is when you kind of aren't in reality, and then moving into that reality, there's always a little bit of pain because that's what you've been avoiding by living in fantasy. So children can have a fantasy of having an attachment to their parents that isn't really there. You'll see this like if a mom's getting like sentenced at court and has to have the child taken away, you'll see the child who's been abused horribly by their parent scream to remain in touch and to stay with their parent. And that's fantasy attachment, and it's a survival mechanism.
The biological phenomenon. Yeah.
That's right. So what we want to talk about today is attunement, the process of attunement, and then attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So Michelle, tell us about attunement.
Okay, so the word attunement is interesting because spell check always wants to say you're saying it wrong. But if you think about attunement, this idea was developed mostly by Daniel Stern, but later it was really expanded by Alan Shore. Attunement just refers to this moment-to-moment process by which a caregiver matches and mirrors the child's emotional state. So not their behavior, so it's not lift up an arm and I'm following you, but the feeling beneath it. You can see when you're in this attuned state, that there's some kind of unseen connection happening and it becomes a shared experience emotionally, particularly, and it's really powerful and 1,000% needed in the first 18 months to 3 years of life. So
yeah, it's a survival need
right.
because young mammals, young humans are defenseless. The only way they can be safe is if they stay in contact and if their parents paying attention to them. because they can get snatched by a predator in 5 seconds. In
Yep.
20 seconds, they can be out the gate and down the road in a busy street.
Yep. And
There's unsafety for children.
children they have two tools. They have being cute and they have a cry. And those are the only tools that they have to get their needs met. And so, that they'll use both of them. And it's really interesting once you start to notice them, especially because the cry, we're trained to stop the cry. But if you sit for a little bit with it, you can, and like mirror that emotion they're having, that can calm them out. That calms them down better. And then even they're cute to see how they are trying to form that attachment with their smiles and their coos. That's them wanting to attune together, because for the first few months, especially, they're even sharing that nervous system with their closest caregiver. So when mama's not happy, baby's not happy. That's not just a saying, it's like biological.
Right. And the mom, by putting herself in certain states, regulates the child. So let's say she wants the child to go to bed. She starts breathing slower, talking with a softer voice to the child, helping them know it's time to downregulate
Right.
and get ready for sleep. Or if something's happening that's exciting, she'll get animated and let the child know this is a time to be vibrant, awake, and active. And the child regulates up.
Right. The difficult work is more about self-regulation, being a parent, than it is about doling out the rules and regulations.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
No.
We have a lot going on.
And we do it wrong. And I'll just say that really the truth of the matter is that misattunement isn't actually even the problem. So that misattunement isn't the problem. The repair is. And Stern's research showed really that good caregivers, so people that we say are healthy caregivers, are actually only attuned about 30% of the time. So it's not like you do not have a life and you are focused on this person. We're only really attuned. There's that putting them in front of you and having the eye to eye contact about 30% of the time. A lot of that can be when you're feeding it when they're little, because that's what you're doing. But what matters more than that amount of attunement is that repair. And so whenever there is the rupture of that attunement, or that gets broken for whatever reason, a million reasons, right? Then it's the coming back and it's the attunement and consistent repair. Things are going to get scary, terrifying, and then we're going to come back and it's going to be okay, and I'm going to take care of you. Things are going to get scary, and then I'm going to come back and it's going to be okay. And then the system learns that pattern, that this feeling comes, but this feeling will come, the comfort will come later. And that's why the repair is so important, which almost makes you think that maybe the rupture is even important in a certain sense.
I'm going to give you a story about how I've seen this in action. I noticed this happening as we were talking about it in therapy. And then I'll give you a couple of resources you can look up for yourself. So first is our beautiful daughter. She had two birds. They're cockatiels, and she lives in the basement. So whenever I'd go walking downstairs, they'd tweet at me. Yeah. They tweet, I tweet back. They tweet, I tweet back. They tweet, I tweet back. They wouldn't tweet back for about 5 seconds, a little longer. And then when they couldn't stand it, they tweet and I tweet back. So what was happening there was they're checking to see if I was actually following their cue or if I was just beeping. They could tell by my interaction with them that I was following their cue. And that's where the key is to attunement.
Right.
So a couple resources.
Yeah.
First off, this is not just woke nonsense that emotions and attunement are important. Check out the podcast from Andrew Huberman, where he has Dr. Alan Shore on there that Mechelle mentioned earlier. It's fantastic, talking about how important relationships are to development.
I'll put a link in the show notes right to that episode. Perfect.
Fantastic.
Perfect. So that rupture repair cycle that we learned in early attachment becomes the template to how we handle rupture as adults. Of course, it makes sense. And so, just to circle back, for you, the amazing thing is that you had these memories that were there with really no emotion, and then you had moments of that really like hard, difficult emotion, and it was really healing, I would say, to actually put those two together, even though those were not great experiences,
Oh, yeah. I felt like I was walking on firmer ground.
because we had the emotion matching the memory.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
And to understand that rupture, because it wasn't met with some resolve or some attunement at the time, that's why it floated there unresolved at the time. But something we really want to emphasize throughout these episodes is that rupture will happen. As a kid, you're going to have the nightmare, or as a couple, you're going to have the argument that hurts deeply, and no matter what it is. And you change a little bit from those ruptures because they're hitting your tender spots. And how dare this person that loves you touch those or push against those tender spots? So it's extra painful. And it's even extra painful because not the next person wouldn't necessarily be as hurt by those things because it's not their wounds. So we talked about before, it's like when we're in an adult relationship, a lot of times it's as if we have these bruises, and then our partners like accidentally brush up or hold on to us, and it happens to be around the bruise. So they didn't cause the original wound, but it sure does hurt to have it touched or looked at or addressed, anything like that. And
Right.
but so those ruptures will happen in this adulthood because we've got these pains from the childhood. And we want to ask the question, like, what if we accepted the rupture? What if we expected the rupture? And then, because number one, I think we talked about one of the things that would have been so helpful is if that rupture wasn't unexpected. Because for it to go on for years, at least from my perspective, I was trying to undo the rupture and make it pretend like it had never happened. When a volcano ruptures, it changes the landscape, and it's rough. Like there is damage done to the landscape, and it's not the same. It's not going to ever be the same again. But that doesn't mean that some of the most fertile ground can't come from that rupture. But during the rupture, and you're not going to be like, oh, this is great, here's our rupture. But if I had understood that this is going to happen, or not even, but this will happen, then it was like, oh, here it is. Let's look for tools. And then so it was like, okay, here's the rupture. What's the repair? And what if we like not just normalized the repair with the couple, but normalized individual repair as part of the necessity for any kind of rupture? It wasn't just if he just stops doing that, which I think a lot of times that's how it feels. I get it when you're struggling in a relationship, if they would just stop, or if they would just this. And those aren't invalid, but they're also not the key to repair. They're not always the key to get repair. And I remember, I still get like cringy because I remember, I think Jackie said it a couple times, that she would just say it so blatantly, and I just wanted to reach across and be like, because she'd just say, if something's trustworthy, you don't know it's trustworthy until it's been tested and tried. And so I think she talked about like if we build a bridge and we're like, is this trustworthy to hold 10,000 pounds? Like, you don't know until you give it 10,000 pounds. Otherwise, it's
That's right.
just a theory. And I did not like that when she said that. I didn't like it at all, but I understand it now on a deeper level. And even then, I wish I could go back to that version of me from what I know now and say, hey, we don't like that right now, and that's okay. Because that was a little rupture right there, listening to that. What do I need to do to repair? What can I do to say, that was difficult? I don't really love that. And then seek repair, which a lot of times is relational. There's some attunement there. So I could turn to you, or I could have turned to her in that time and said, oh, that's really hard to hear. And I bet you both would be like, oh, yeah. And then I would say, okay, now that feeling didn't just, okay, now I like it, but I have some attunement. And so it resolves.
Right.
So it doesn't stay in the system.
It's almost like relationships were, I mean, I hate to use this word, but it's almost like they're divinely designed to grow us as people,
Yeah.
to cause rupture and then to give us an opportunity for repair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have three brain areas. If we have, I'm sure we have more, but just to make it simple, we have the thinking brain up top, then we have the limbic emotional brain, and then we have the survival lizard brain. So where attachment really comes in is on the emotional limbic brain. And one thing I wanted to say about the emotional brain is it doesn't have a sense of time. So those experiences to me that happened 40 years before I felt them, when they came up, it's almost like it's happening right now. That's the
Right.
only way it can express it
Right.
is here's a present terror feeling for you
Right.
because there's no time involved. So just wanted to point that out. And we're going to move now into talking about attachment instead of attunement. There's a lot of terminology, but it's really simple at its core. Michelle's going to explain it and break it down for us.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about attunement, and I think you can get a sense of what that means to be attuned to someone, whether it's another adult or if you think about a child and their caregiver. But and then we have this attachment system, and if you think about systems in your body, your circulatory system, your digestive system, it's a system like that. An attachment system is the mechanism by which we connect and stay safe as human beings, really. And we are connective beings. We are, like Brene Brown says, when she says we are wired for connection, she's saying we are biologically designed to be connected to other people. And like talking about the three brains, we even were discussing the other day about, you shared with me that reptiles don't really have that limbic brain. And it was like genius because I'm like, no wonder why I get the willies around reptiles.
Yeah, because they don't have that limbic emotional brain. So you can't feel a connection with them. So they feel like a separate, distinct entity versus a dog. You
Right.
have a little connection. You can tell what they're thinking. You can see what's going on. But reptiles, you can't.
Right. And like, that just like rang true to me because I feel alone when I'm with them.
Maybe you feel still faced by reptiles.
Yes.
If watch the still face experiment, Dr. Ed Tronick, is a 3-minute video. We'll provide the link. This is a sad video to watch.
Yeah.
A mom and a child come in to an experimental room where they're being videotaped, and the mom is interacting with the child. She'll say something, the child responds, she reacts. They're having this back and forth, just like the birds I talked about,
Yeah.
and everything's good. And then the experimenter asked the mom to go into still face, where she would turn off her expression and stare blankly at the child.
Emotionless. No, not anger.
Not anger, just
Just
blank face.
right.
Like, I'm not here. I'm dissociating. My head's down the street a block.
Non-attunement.
Non-attunement. And the child starts to feel uncomfortable. And so they start moving. First, they start trying to be cute. So they smile, they point at something, and the mom just sits there still, doesn't react. Then the child lets out a screech, like, look at me. And still the mom doesn't react. And finally, the child just gives up, screams, and is probably feeling that terror feeling.
Dysregulated.
And
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
dysregulated. So they're in survival mode. And
In
then
2
the mom,
minutes. In 2
and then
minutes.
it's about 2 minutes, and it's about 2 minutes too long because it's really painful. But then the
Really
mom
hard to watch.
comes back and says, "Oh, did you miss me? Oh, like it's okay. I'm here." And it's just this sweet little connection, and the baby starts to regulate. But he also mentions what happens for those children that don't receive that reconnection, that repair. That's where it gets really painful to understand what goes on. Yeah.
And then they did it again, but they made a slight change.
That's right. So it's not just the mom being present with the child. They took the children and put them basically over Zoom, the mom in one room, the child in another room. And when they're live and interacting, the child does great and fine and feels safe. But then if they play the same actions back as a recording of their mom, the child does not feel safe. They can tell that their mom is not reacting to them. They are missing that connection.
Even though it's smiley happy.
Even though it's smiley happy, they know that they're not connected.
Right.
And then they did even brought it, a level further and said, okay, let's have a mom give constant, complete attention to the child, full attunement all the time, kind of, you might call it hounding or smothering. Always stay with that child. That's too much. It dysregulates the child as well. So
Right.
there's a balance, and the only way you can know where the right level is try to feel it.
Yeah, that attunement.
Practice.
And then later on in life, too, as the child's growing, I feel like the same kind of thing happens sometimes when a mom is upset or I'm upset, and my kid will say, what's wrong? Nothing, I'm fine. That is that's going to be a rupture for that child, and it's going
That's
to
right.
develop some insecurities within them because they feel it.
They know
They
what's
feel
going
it.
on.
And we particularly have one of our kids that is really sensitive and connected to me. And during our rupture, are you okay? And I would have to find a way to tell him what was going on but I knew that I couldn't say to him, nothing, it's fine. Because I knew he knew it wasn't fine. And I knew that it would be almost emotionally abusive to tell him it's fine. It's difficult, but until you understand this information, I think it begins to make sense. And so that's really good to understand the attunement and to know that attunement is this building block that we have for building what we want as a secure attachment. So when a caregiver is consistently attuned, noticing, reflecting, and responding to that child's emotional state like you described, the child will develop a secure attachment. Now remember, that's 30% of the time. You don't have to get too much shameful about parenting, but with that attunement back and forth and that secure attachment, they learn that my feelings are real, visible, and they're safe. And I think if we had understood our attachment, the attachment system, the attachment theory, I think it would have been really different for us. So that's why we're sharing it early on. And there is an amazing class that Jackie, our therapist, created. And I had her make it for my business, the Wholeness Network. And I'm going to put a link in the description. And it is a online class that you can watch and learn the details of the attachment theory. And I really encourage you to do that, because the thing that I'm going to tell you is this such a bird's eye view. It doesn't give it justice. But one thing to notice is that most research, we're talking about 50 years of research, at least, the research done on attachment theory really does center around usually a relationship between you and your primary caregiver when you were a baby, specifically during the first 18 months of your life. But other people can influence your attachment style. And so past relationships, romantic relationships, they can also shape the way you react to those emotional cues. So even if you had more of a secure attachment in childhood, betrayal or other difficult experiences can cause you to develop an insecure attachment later in life, whether that's chronic or whether it's for a period of time. And I don't know a teenage girl in junior high that doesn't have an anxious attachment style.
I want to say too, like in our relationship during therapy, there was a point where Michelle and I both realized that I had been still facing her, and it would cause her to panic. And then it would ramp me up, and we would end up in a fight because we were not attuned.
Right. And because you had learned to shut things down out of safety, so you weren't able to attune. You didn't refuse it. You didn't refuse it.
Thanks. You're so compassionate.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, and we can have a different attachment styles with different people sometimes because of our past experiences. There might be people you feel more secure with. There might be somebody that's a little more anxious and you're busy. Like you might turn a little bit avoidant toward them. Like that just sounds right? That you're going to be different with different people. And so here are the attachment styles. First of all, you have a secure attachment. And that's what we talked about. Secure attachment has you trust others pretty easily. You can communicate effectively, which is getting your needs and wants communicated. You can regulate your emotions. You're not offline, whether it's hypo or hyper. So you're either super busy, keep it moving, or flat and no emotions. You're able to regulate those. You feel comfortable spending time alone as when you're securely attached. You can connect to others easily, so you can do both. So you can be alone, and it's easy to connect with other people. And you can manage conflict in a healthy way. It doesn't take you out, and you can make yourself emotionally available to people in your life. You might say, if somebody says, "Hey, I need you right now," and you might say, "Oh, can you give me 5 minutes?" It doesn't mean that you put yourself aside and you're just always available, but you're able to do that calculation between your own needs and the other person's needs. And that's on a deep level, like probably that limbic level of what needs to come first rather than a checklist. And so then if we don't have a secure attachment, then we move into these insecure attachments. And like I say, she has different languages and they're more in depth. The ones that I'm going to tell you are low level descriptions. I go into hers and you'll get a more in-depth understanding of yourself. And like Monte did with putting those things together, when you have more understanding of yourself, there is automatic healing there, even though nothing else has even happened. And so the first one's an anxious attachment style. And so this one, you might have that low grade, consistent feeling of unworthiness. You might be highly sensitive to criticism. You might have difficulty spending time alone. Your esteem, you might have low self-esteem, but actually what happens is we're other esteemed. So I'm okay because I have this, or because I am this, or because those kind of things. It's not within the self, it's other esteemed. We might have difficulty trusting other people. There might be feelings of jealousy that come up right away. And these things are biologically, remember, it's that feeling of flush or heat or pressure or whatever that is, sensations in your body. And that's difficult sometimes because it comes in those sensations. It doesn't come in, "You're feeling jealous right now." So it's hard to catch because immediately we learn how to shut that down and instead of explore it. And then there's some feelings of rejection and abandonment in the anxious attachment system. And then a second one is called an avoidant attachment style. And if you have an avoidant attachment style, you might have this strong sense of independence, just pride that I can do it myself, which again, like there's something to be prideful, but we are connective beings. And so there's a little something off. And of course, these are spectrums, right? But we can, avoidant will want to dismiss others easily. Like it's fine. They don't have that limbic connection very closely. They have difficulty trusting others because they're going to do it themselves. They can handle it. It's like if I don't trust someone, then I don't get my trust taken away. I don't lose that. So it's a protective thing. They feel uneasy when people try to get close to them. A lot of times there's avoiding intimacy, whether that's emotional, physical. So they'll just want to, can we just keep it light? And they might have commitment issues. Can we just be friends? Can we just chill? Why do we have to make it so official? That's their attachment system. Think of the respiratory system activating and saying, can we just not do that? So it's if you were to eat something you don't like, it's like, I just don't want to do that. You don't sit there and calculate it. It's a feeling. And then there's this other kind that's called disorganized. And this is a mixture of both. And so if you have a disorganized attachment, you might have difficulty trusting others, trouble regulating your emotions. And then
honestly, you have signs of both those anxious and avoidant attachment styles, and they show up unpredictably. Is that a word? There's a fear of rejection, and there's confusing or contradictory behaviors. So sometimes there's, I want to be close to you, and then all of a sudden there's maybe that still face. And to understand that this chronic misattunement, so when we don't get the 30%, that shapes an insecure attachment style. And a caregiver who consistently dismisses emotional distress can produce this avoidant attachment style. One who is unpredictably attuned, sometimes warm, sometimes absent. You don't know what you're going to get. That tends to produce an anxious attachment style. And the disorganized attachment often comes from a caregiver who is simultaneously the source of fear. So I want to be with that person. That's the only person I've got to survive physically. But they're also the place where I get my fear. And
Right.
that attunement is broken at that fundamental level. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about why this matters. Let's say you have misattunements throughout the week. Those can really eat into your sense of safety and productivity. Let's say you're a disorganized attachment. You might go from safety to feeling like you're in threat, back to safety, back to threat a couple times a day. One action you can take that can help with that is the Sunday morning cuddle. Let's say Sunday mornings you feel like you got to get up, go be productive, get stuff done, go to meetings, whatever you got to do. That can have ramifications and ripples throughout the entire week, where another option is laying in bed with your partner a little longer, spending some time together, connecting on an emotional level, just being with each other. That can have payoff and payback throughout the entire week because you feel more safe. And that's definitely a practical advice I've tried, and it helps. And
you didn't make it up.
Today. I didn't make it up. It comes from the book Attached. It's at the end in the troubleshooting section. So hopefully you can give a link to that book. It's not perfect, but man, it's sure insightful.
Yeah, because they realized they really were more productive.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so really quickly, I just want to share an experience that I had and the reason why is because to show how easy these disruptions can come in and how they can be unintended. One of the first healing sessions I had in heart-centered therapy, we feel through our body, we get in touch with a feeling, and we ask ourselves, when was the first time I felt this feeling? And immediately I could picture myself almost like in a crib with just all these faces around me. And I was the number 7th child, and I was 6 years younger than my closest sibling. So I was the new, shiny, happy, excited toy in the household, and everybody wanted their turn at me. And as special as that was, I remember I just felt inside myself that it was a little dysregulating, because it was like, everyone wants a piece of me. In heart-centered therapy, in those moments, we talk about that there's a fracture that happens. And in order to solve this problem that's in front of me right now, we take a piece of ourselves, we fracture it off to make it better. And it made sense for me in this particular experience where I took my shine and I thought, I'll just be a wallflower. And in fact, the way that it represented it was like a little flower, like a corsage, but it was pinned in my skin. So it was like, this is a pretty thing. Look at this pretty thing instead of me. And so we ask there, where did that shine that need to go? And, it's amazing how when you can go into these healing sessions that the information comes rather quickly. I'm not thinking about it, but they show up, and it was like, I put it on the moon. That was the bright thing, the shiny thing, the farthest away thing that made sense. And whether this is true, because like you say, in the limbic system, time isn't measured there. So even though I'm 40 something years old and I'm talking about being in the crib, time doesn't exist, and I can reorganize what happened there, those feelings. And so I brought that shine back, and it was a really healing experience. But it was really interesting to me to understand that because I always had someone with me to a fault, not because nobody liked me, but because of the circumstance, my attachment system was used to having someone around. And so for years, decades of my life, I didn't want to do things alone, and I wanted to be the follower. I had this little sister mentality that I really worked hard at, where I want the other person to go, and I would follow behind. In fact, when we went to early college, our senior year of high school, my sister had said, "Hey, why don't you go do that? Just start moving on." And I was like, "No way." And then one of my friends said, "Hey, I'm going to do early college." Okay, I'm there. I was that way. Even as a mother, if somebody like, "Let's go take a pottery class," I wasn't gonna go by myself. I didn't know how to do that. And it might have probably most likely was more than just that one moment, but that was a way that my brain and system could organize those feelings and help me understand what had developed me. So yeah, so I show up a little, I lean a little toward more an anxious style than anything else. And it's not like I'm completely anxious, but the avoidant thing, no way. That's like a little scary for me, which means, oh, I'm more on the anxious side. I can lean that way really easily. And so these stories of going back and revisiting emotions, whether they really happened, I don't know if that really happened, if that was a moment in time in my crib, I don't know. And that's less important because that limbic system forgets time, we can use it to our advantage to do some repair. And we had a really special repair time with you one day when we decided, I don't know how, but that you would let me do a healing session on you.
Yeah. So, yeah, damage to the nervous system or underdevelopment. The good thing about that is it can be repaired. It can be damaged. It can also be repaired.
Right.
And that's the great thing about attachment. So that's called getting earned secure attachment.
Right.
So this is something Mechelle and I did to try to build that inside of me. And it has really helped. So she had me lay down on our bed. She got everything comfortable for me. She put, I think, a tissue with a little sandbag on my eyes. She gave me like some great smelling essential oils on my toes and then a little on my mouth to kind of get me into a place. She uses them like paintbrush colors to set the mood.
Yeah. Music's going. The lighting's
going.
Right.
She's got just, imagine you're in a spa and it's just relaxing, calming music. She's got that going on. And she's just kind of asked me, okay, I'd like to do an experience where I'm with you somewhere. Where would you like to go? And I chose floating on East Canyon. There used to be these boats at the end of Boys Life for scouting fundraisers. We would, if you sold enough like Post-it notes or stationery, you could earn the Seahawk inflatable craft with paddles, with oars.
Okay.
And so that's where I wanted to be, was with 10-year-old Mechelle, spending a day on the lake, only us.
Your 10-year-old self too.
My 10-year-old self, let's not go there. Both of us 10-year-old selves.
Right.
There, spending a day together on the lake. And we just imagined this day that was wonderful.
Yeah, we smelled the smells, we felt the sun. We made it as
in the water.
Right. We made it as physical as we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went up one of the fingers, we came back, we got a little sunburn. And he asked me what I want that I didn't get, and I said, I want a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, okay, I'm going to come up with a nickname. And you came up with Motor, and that hit just right because I love motors.
Monte Motor. It was a magical moment because it was just like, of course that would be your nickname.
I love that nickname too.
I like it. And you'd never really had a nickname, which is a term of endearment.
Mont, but that's almost like lazy way of saying Monty. It's how it felt to me anyway.
Right.
I don't mind Mont.
Right.
And that can be an endearment, like we're close, but
a nickname is a term of endearment.
Yeah.
And it comes naturally. I call her Butte. Yep. And it just comes out. We didn't say, hey, by the way, I'm going to start calling you Butte.
Yeah, it just for beauty.
Yeah, beauty. It just develops from that attunement relationship. And so it made sense that you were like, I want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
And so
was fun.
I've got a tattoo design. I'm going to get something somewhere. It's a piston.
Yeah.
That's just reminds me of that moment because it rebuilt in my nervous system a little bit of support, a little bit of safety that stays there. I mean, that's one of the benefits of that emotional brain not knowing time. It doesn't really matter. I wanted to touch on something you said too about your experience when you're laying down and looking up at all these faces staring at you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that you said like it doesn't really matter if that happened or not. And I just want to validate that our brains have this system of pruning that it can only remember so much. And so it can condense down an experience into just the feeling, and all you're left with is the feeling. So if when we go back and imagine an experience with it, it can be just as healing to create that feeling as the original experience. And whether it's accurate or not, it doesn't matter almost at all. The feeling matters.
Right. And your example is proof of that, because that did not happen. We did not know each other at 10 years old.
Right. And that we did that a couple years ago, and I've thought about it almost weekly.
And when you think about it, does the memory come in or does the sensation come in?
Sensation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that sensation?
Fun. Play.
Yep.
No pressure. And I'm enjoyed.
Yeah. Pleasant.
I'm valued being with.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that.
So I wanted to take a moment and talk about my parents a little bit. I hope my parents listen to this. And I know they tried their hardest and they did better than their parents. And I'm really grateful for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much contact with them just because I'm still working through some things. And I just want to say, I hope that they maybe aren't so defensive. And I hope that they're proud of me and proud of you for doing this. Yeah.
As we share these things, we don't get any pleasure off of calling them bad or whatever, even if even if the story does not make them look great. But it's really a system, I feel like, that we are under that produces this, and that we're doing this for our kids, for our grandkids, so that we can change the system.
Yeah. And I believe, I mean, these are just our experiences. We don't know that they're truth again. And I believe that my parents could do a podcast and talk about the same kinds of things and understand themselves from their perspective. They have a perspective too.
Yep.
And I'd be interested to hear it if they did make a podcast.
Right.
But anyway, that's how it is.
And we're going to talk about that in the next episode, about how what doesn't happen is almost more impactful than those things we might identify as happening that were bad, that were hard, that were disruptive or rupturing.
That's right.
And that's going to be an important episode. But do you want to recap what we've talked about today?
Yeah. So it started out, we talked about 3 stories from my childhood. There was the air conditioner floating in my room, my finger getting cut off, and then having a hallucination or a visitation from Satan, something nasty, right?
Yeah, that was what it was labeled.
Yeah. Then we talked about attunement, and we mentioned still face experiment. We talked about how attunement leads to what kind of attunement you got leads to your attachment style. Mm-hmm. Then we talked about different attachment styles. There's secure, there's anxious, there's avoidant, and then there's disorganized. That's me. And now what we're going to end up with, what we're going to end on for our rupture repair practice today is a little meditation for each of you. I hope you can relax and enjoy it. If Michelle asks you to close your eyes and you're driving, don't close your eyes, please. Do this when you're in a safe place, or do it with your eyes open. That's okay too.
Whatever, safety is the key here. So whatever can help you feel the most comfortable, if it's laying down, if it's sitting up, if it's eyes open, if it's alone, if it's with someone, be brave and ask someone to be with you. But we invite you to just take a moment to just relax, bring yourself to this place and start to breathe. which you're already doing, but paying attention to the breath. And focus the breath, or imagine the breath coming in and out of your heart space. And as you do that, we just start to calm a little bit. And if it doesn't calm, then maybe it's not the right time for this, and that's okay. We want to honor you wherever you are. And as you keep breathing just in and out of your chest, I just want you to bring into your mind and your imagination. It's to imagine that you're on the front steps of one of your childhood homes, or the main childhood home. Whichever one it comes up is just right. There's no right answers or wrong answers here. And you might not follow with me exactly, and that's just fine too. But if it feels right, go inside and find that younger version of yourself. And notice where they're at. Notice how old they are. Notice how they're feeling. Notice how they're showing up in their lives. And if it feels right, go toward that younger version of yourself and introduce yourself as their older version of them, and that you're here to support them and take care of them. And notice the reaction. And become attuned with this version of yourself. If they want you to step away, if they want you to lean in, but really practice that feeling. And you know each other better than anyone else. You are the perfect person to be with that version of you, because you understand every moment of that experience. And that's really tender. And I would say that's the divineness within you, that connection. It's very divine. If that scene needs some support, if they're having a hard time, or if they need you to intervene in any way, go ahead and do that. Whatever they need, do it with that attunement, with your adult self being able to take care of them. Maybe they need to be defended. Whatever that is, allow that to happen. And when that feels complete, see if that young version of you would like to come with you somewhere. And imagine that you're taking them out of that space and almost moving through time. And as you move through time, that younger version sees beyond that moment it was stuck in. It sees the next birthday and the next birthday. It sees the marriage. It sees the birth. It sees the future beyond that moment. And as we're moving through time, we're going to bring healing with us, going through that time and space. And just notice the sensations in your body as you allow that healing to trickle through all the cells in your body, all the waters of your body, all of the physical parts of you receiving healing and recalibrating the cells to grow in this new way that's a little more healed, a little more protected, a little more safe. And wherever you want to take that young one, show them what you like about this new place, and just see what they do, and attune to what they see and what they feel. And then if it feels right, you can ask them what they want to do next. And whatever that is, let's allow that. Allow that to happen. And you can spend as much time as what feels correct for you. But when it feels right, you can just begin to return back to that breathing in your heart. Start to feel the surroundings in the space that you're in. Bring yourself to this grounded moment, back to the present. Remembering and bringing with you all the sensations that are positive. Take a couple final deep breaths. And when it feels right, you can open your eyes or return to what you were doing before. And I really thank you for taking this time to walk this little bit of a journey with me.
Share with you what I experienced.
Yeah.
So I walked into my house to my younger self, laying in the bed with my brothers. and I pulled him up and I said, hey, you're not nasty. You're good. Come with me. And I brought him to our house right now where we're at while we're recording this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed him around the house too. And I showed him, hey, I got a motorcycle. Check out, Michelle's here, my kids. And you said, like, what does he want to do? And he just wanted to give you a big hug. You know? That's meaningful.
This is a podcast about what happens when old wounds meet adult love. We're talking about the patterns we didn't choose, the triggers we don't understand, and the moments where love feels harder than it should. We share missteps, the breakthroughs, and the deep inner work needed to stop surviving and start truly connecting. This isn't a story about perfect healing or flawless relationships. It's about awareness, compassion, and choosing growth again and again. It's about learning how to build safety, trust, and intimacy when those things weren't modeled for us. If you've ever wondered why relationships feel heavier than you expect, if you love but struggle to feel seen, safe, or understood, if you want healing, stay with us, because healing isn't out of reach. We're not here to save marriages or lower the divorce rate. This isn't therapy, it's education with a focus on harm reduction, personal agency, and making life a little easier. We do that through storytelling and sharing perspectives. These are our stories, filtered through our own lens. Anytime we talk about other people, that's just our perception, not capital T truth.